Hi everyone, so before this video begins, I want to direct you to the description of this video where I'm going to be leaving a lot of resources in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. There will be places to donate as well as other ways to support if you don't have the means right now to financially support this cause. I'm sure you're aware of the protests going on in America as well as around the world against systemic racism, and it's really imperative that white people and non-Black POC do their part to support this cause. Regarding the book community, it's really important to uplift and amplify Black voices and Black creators, not just now, but always. I'm going to be leaving links in the description to videos made by Mika August, Mina Reads, Naya Reads and Smiles, and other Black booktubers who have spoken about their experience being Black in this community and have expressed what needs to be done to make this space more inclusive. People need to listen and educate themselves and actively work to change the ways that white supremacy has dominated society. Essentially, Black Lives Matter, and I won't tolerate, nor do I want the support of anyone who thinks otherwise. Hello everyone, my name is Yara, and today we're going to be talking about Little Fires Everywhere, the show and the book. Mostly the show, but we're also going to be talking about the differences from the book and how it is as an adaptation. I read this as a part of the Little Fires read-along and Little Fires watch-along that is going on with the Asian Readathon this month, and I'm really glad I did because I really ended up enjoying both the book and the show, although I have issues with both. Different issues too, weirdly enough. If you're coming to this video wondering if you should give either a try, I would say definitely. At the very least, it makes you think about morality and ethics in a very intimate way, as well as deconstructing issues of class and privilege. So Little Fires Everywhere takes place in a very affluent, planned community in Ohio called Shaker Heights, and we follow a family called the Richardsons. They are that picture-perfect white nuclear family with a father who's a lawyer, 4 children in high school, and the mom, Elena, who is very involved in the community and is an enforcer of plans and rules. Enter Mia and Pearl Warren, who are a mother-daughter duo who have all their life been traveling between cities and to wherever Mia, who is an artist, draws inspiration from. Mia and Pearl don't fit the mold at all for what Shaker Heights is, and yet the Richardsons end up renting out their duplex to them. Pearl ends up becoming really close to the Richardson children, but as the families get closer, more tensions arise. Controversy is especially stirred up when the Richardsons' family friends end up adopting a Chinese baby, and Mia and Elena end up on different sides of that battle. The story talks about motherhood and what being a good versus bad mom is, and if we can even define those parameters. It explores class and racial privilege and how not everyone has the same background or opportunities, and that influences who they are and also the choices that they get, and even the options of the choices they get to have. It challenges the idea of pursuing perfection and how, instead of getting closer to that goal, all you're doing is setting little fires everywhere. Hence the title. Now, in regards to the question of whether the show is a good adaptation or not of Little Fires Everywhere, in many ways the show stays very faithful to the book, especially in terms of the core messages. I'm pretty sure that Celeste Ng was involved in the production of the show, and that's evident in how, even when there's changes introduced, the themes of the show are still the same. But while much of the plot and characters are very similar, there actually were a lot of changes introduced. Some of them I liked, some I disliked, and some were just, I didn't even have an opinion of it. They were just different, and it's interesting to compare the implications of what those changes made. So for example, because the show is just a longer piece of media, we were able to explore a lot of things that were just kind of brushed upon in the book, like Elena's past. There was also probably the most evident change in making Mia and Pearl Black, which added a new layer in the discussion of privilege, especially when comparing Mia and Elena. And also the relationships between the kids and Pearl, because it wasn't just class anymore. The change felt very natural to me and it made a lot of sense, and it expanded upon the blueprint that the book laid out. But a change that I didn't necessarily like was that the show kind of eradicated any subtlety to the matter and the discussions. The way Celeste Ng crafted the story was to make you trust this family, to make you believe in the relationships and the friendships that were being formed, until those microaggressions keep adding up and you realize how toxic the reality is. And honestly, I was kind of frustrated with just the amount of subtlety in the book, because whether it was for my own validation and satisfaction, I just wanted things to be called out, people to fight back, things to be explicitly stated. And the show gave me that from the beginning. Things are being called out. The show tells you what it wants you to understand about these dynamics. And I watched the show immediately after I read the book, and so I really enjoy this aspect because I just craved it so much after finishing that book, and that was something that I really wanted to see from the end of that book. But the more I sat on it and read some other reviews about the show, I realized that the heavy-handedness of the show kind of minimized the whole point of the book. It's called Little Fires Everywhere for a reason. And so now I want to get into spoilers, talking specifically about what the changes were. So if you haven't read the book and watched the show, I would not recommend continuing from this point onwards. Okay, spoilers starting now. So the biggest change that I noticed was Mia's character. And not even the fact that she's black. Like I said before, I liked that added a lot of complexity to what was going on. I'm more referring to the fact that throughout the book, I was made under the impression that she is very much a fly on the wall. She was a very passive character, like you'd forget that she was even there. And this passiveness kind of annoyed me in the book just because I wanted it to go somewhere. Like I wanted some sort of vindication in the end. I wanted her to call out everybody, and we didn't get that. But the show Mia makes her feelings very clear. Like you can visibly see the distaste and the uncomfortableness in every interaction with her and Elena or her and any Richardson person. She calls out Lexi for being privileged and rude, calls out Izzy for not recognizing that she is privileged and that she has benefited from a system that has given her privilege. And part of me liked this because I liked seeing her defend herself and seeing her calling people out when she sees it. But it kind of took away from this fly in the wall persona that she had in the book. I wasn't really a fan at how rocky they made Mia and Pearl's relationship, because Mia and Pearl's relationship was kind of the juxtaposition to the Richardson kids and Elena because Mia and Pearl were so close. And even when that conflict was building in the book, it was always a matter of a lack of communication. It was Pearl starting to hide things from her mother, but Mia never put any restrictions or argued with Pearl's choices, whereas it was kind of a common occurrence in the show. At the same time though, I did think it was realistic how angry Pearl got at her mom. Let's talk about that for a second. So in the book, Ed Lim ends up representing BB for free. It was pro bono, which made sense when her whole platform is that she was poor, she couldn't afford that, she's like the little guy, the underdog. And Ed Lim was uplifting her so that these kind of situations won't keep happening. But in the show, Mia ends up selling this really important picture for $50,000 to help pay for BB's legal fees. And it kind of felt like something that was just introduced to make things more dramatic, but it also made sense. It made sense that Mia didn't want to sell it, but now she feels guilty about what she did in her past, and so this is her way of repaying that or justifying it to herself. And it also makes sense that Pearl is so upset that they had this money laying around and all their life they lived in almost poverty when they could have been financially supported. And it also made sense that Pearl was angry when she finally found out about her mom's past and how she came to exist. In the book, she just like accepted it. She was just surprised. But it made sense for her to be angry that these secrets were being kept for so long. Mia is also bisexual in the show, whereas we don't get any indication of her sexuality in the book. And in addition to that representation, it also added another layer to Mia and Izzy's relationship, as we learn that Izzy is a lesbian, which is also another change they made from the book. Because they weren't just kindred spirits who were artists and rebels and just didn't fit the mold of Shaker Heights, but they also shared this aspect of their identity that other people didn't understand. They also changed some things regarding Lexi, which was kind of interesting. In the book, Pearl offers to help or offers to flat out write Lexi's application to Yale, but in the show, she steals Pearl's experience with racial discrimination and turns it into something about gender discrimination for her own sake. Now, on the one hand, I didn't like this because, again, it lacked the subtlety of that relationship that the book had, because there is still an imbalance of power when Pearl offered to write that essay, specifically in her wanting to be part of that family and just assuming people's best interests instead of seeing them for what they are, whereas Pearl here recognizes that this is bad and that she was being treated badly. But on the other hand, I liked what that did for Lexi and Brian's relationship and the conversation that it brought up. I don't even remember how they broke up in the book. I think they were arguing about something, or I think it was that Lexi was still angry because she never told him about her abortion, but they just ended it and it was so like anticlimactic. There wasn't that much of a reason for it. Whereas the show made it this prolonged confrontation of Brian trying to get Lexi to recognize her privilege and to recognize what she was doing wrong, and that she can't just not see race. And so when they broke up, it was a lot more impactful. And also with Lexi writing Pearl's name at the abortion clinic, again, in the book, Pearl kind of goes along with it because she wants to be a good friend. And while she doesn't necessarily like it, she understands why Lexi would do that. Whereas in the show, she clearly recognizes that her trust is being abused. Again, I just thought it would be more effective to make the microaggressions, or just flat out aggressions, less heavy-handed, to demonstrate that giving people the benefit of the doubt because something's not outright racist or sexist or terrible may just be hiding deep prejudices. In terms of BB's storyline, they stayed pretty true to the book. One thing that really aggravated me is when they had BB storm into the birthday party. It was so obviously just done to make the end of the episode really dramatic, but it was frustrating because that just supports the McCulloughs claim that she's unfit to be a mother, and the whole thing was just so not necessary. This detail is very small, but I don't think that the show mentioned it, but I thought it was important. The fact that Baby left a note saying that Mei Ling's name was Mei Ling, and the McCulloughs changed it to Mirabelle anyway. This is pretty important to me because the fact that they changed her name to a very white name was just solid evidence of the fact that they weren't gonna honor her heritage. As much as they're good intentions, they're not gonna be the best people to keep that part of her life. But in the show, I don't think they made it clear that they changed it instead of just giving her a name. They made it seem that Mei Ling was found without a name, and so they just gave her a name, which wouldn't really mean anything because of course you would give that child a name if you didn't know it. So something that was completely new to the show, like we barely even mentioned it at all in the book, was Elena's past. We got that whole episode with Anna Sophia Robb and how Jamie asked Elena to go with him to Paris and not go back to Shaker Heights, but Elena didn't do that because she wanted to follow her plan. And then a couple of years later, when she's finally excited to get back to work after having 3 kids, she finds out that she's pregnant again. And she doesn't want this baby, she wants to get an abortion, but she feels pressure from her mom and from her husband to keep the baby. And so she does, and she kind of blames that for the way her life went and how she couldn't pursue her career. In the book, Elena specifically states that Izzy was wanted. And I feel like on the surface it's not that big of a deal, but it's actually a very big distinction because in the book, Elena is so frustrated with Izzy because she does not fit the mold of what her child should be. She had 3 children who all did what she wanted them to do, but she hates the fact that her 4th child has a mind of her own and disagrees. The fact that the show made Izzy unwanted means that the kids aren't equalized. It's not that Izzy is not following a precedent. From her very conception, she was a deviation from the plan. She is a living embodiment of Elena's inability to control her life. So instead of Elena's hatred, essentially, of Izzy being rooted in the fact that she can't control her, similar to how she's so angry that she can't control Mia and Pearl, and that being from a sense of privilege and entitlement, the show makes it rooted in her own inability to control her life and her anger at that. I honestly find both ways fascinating. They're just very different. What I really wanted that I didn't get in the show or the book is for Trip and Moody to talk. Moody turns into a flat-out incel in the book, which I did not like, because I was rooting for him and I felt bad for him, but then I didn't anymore because he was so rude. Whereas Trip became a little bit more in tune with his emotions as he started dating Pearl, and at one point he even brings up how he feels guilty that he doesn't have a closer relationship with Moody. And I think the show did a good job of showing how Moody is insecure because Trip is that, I guess, ideal jock figure that everyone always loves, and he doesn't fit that mold. So I was really hoping that after they had that physical fight that they would actually talk about their feelings, but no, we can't have that here. And finally, another big change to the show was the ending. In the book, Izzy sets all the fires, and she sets them off in each of the kids' individual rooms, which is like a metaphor for the little fires everywhere. Whereas in the show, all the kids contribute to burning down the house. And I don't know, I really liked that. I think it was much more powerful than just having Izzy do it because Izzy is the one you expect to do it. And the show even tries to get you to believe that she does it by having her burn her own hair in the first couple episodes. But even though I said that I wish there was more talking between Chip and Moody, I was glad we had some sort of solidarity between the kids at the end and them realizing what their lives have turned to. I also liked that Mia told Elena that Lexi had an abortion and wrote Pearl's name on it and how she wasn't there to even support her. And Elena actually taking responsibility for what happened. That was one of my big issues with the book, is that I felt like the end didn't do anything. That's a bit excessive. But it didn't feel like Elena understood the implications of all that happened. She didn't learn about Lexi's abortion and about the lies being told and how it was her doing that caused a lot of these things. A key factor in Elena's entire character is her cognitive dissonance, her inability to accept guilt or feel regret because of her inability to cope with the idea that she made the wrong choice. And so to have her look so defeated and broken in the final episode and finally understand how something like this could happen was a much more satisfying conclusion to me than the book. So I think that is all that I wanted to say. It's really weird because when I first finished the show, I was so positive that I thought the show was better than the book. And it's probably just because I was more entertained by the show. But in reality, I have praise and criticism for both of them. But mostly praise though. Please let me know your thoughts and if you agree with me on anything, if you disagree with me on anything. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you later. Bye.